Steve Cass is a letting and estate agent in East Anglia, and he professes to be the happiest letting and estate agent, earning £30,000 a year and only 1.5 hours a day. Really? Talk to me.
Yeah, well, I started off in 2013. I had been working for a small independent letting agency in the town where
Where's home?
Saffron Walden,
Okay,
which
so-
is about 12 miles south of Cambridge.
Oh, so not bad part of the world.
No, very nice part of the world. It's my wife's hometown, which is how I came to be there. And I set up in 2013, and I honestly had no idea whether I was going to be able to earn a living or not. All I knew was that things were changing so much that you didn't need to have an office. You didn't necessarily need to have staff unless you wanted to grow so big that you had no choice but to have staff because you can't do it all yourself. I knew how much it cost to run an office. I knew how much it cost to have all the equipment and the staff, etc., because I did all the accounting and stuff for my previous employer, as well as a lot of the rest of the stuff. And so I thought I will give it a go. If you've got Rightmove, Zoopla, that kind of stuff, you don't need to have an office. You can work from home. Then you just got to work out how to get your clients.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is go step back in time before you set up your own agency, even before you started to set up work for a letting and estate agency, and go back to when you were in gainful paid employment before you were an agent. So what sort of jobs were you in your 20s and 30s?
I started off in my 20s working for one of the subsidiaries of NatWest Bank, NatWest Insurance Services.
Okay.
And I worked my way up through NatWest Bank. I became a senior project manager, delivering, for example, the first time that the NatWest Mortgage sales force were ever given any kind of IT equipment, laptops and printers. I was in charge of that project, and I worked there from 1984 until the year 2000, when Royal Bank of Scotland took them over, and they offered people in middle management so much money to go away that I took it and went away quite happily.
Okay. So was everything plain sailing in those years of working for NatWest?
It's never plain sailing, because I'd got myself in a situation where I was having to travel, 1,000 miles a month at least every month, which wasn't much fun in the winter, but you have to go around and do sort all the training for people out as well. So yeah, there was plenty that I didn't enjoy, which is why I was quite happy to go when they offered me silly money to go away.
Okay. So were you always based in East Anglia, or?
No. First of all, I was based in Bristol, which is the area I'm from, and then I was based in Birmingham, but I spent a lot of time in London as well, because everything was centred in London in those days.
So this was in your 20s. So
20s and 30s, yeah.
Okay, so when did you meet your wife, or to be?
Met my wife in 1995, so I was 30 at that point. Yeah, that's when we met.
Okay, and met her in Saffron Walden, did you?
No. This was over. Well, I was living in Stroud actually, because I was having to go between Bristol and Birmingham a lot, and that's a sort of halfway point on the M5 and on a train line. And she was living in a nearby town of Cirencester, and I joined the local operatic society, doing Gilbert and Sullivan, all that kind of stuff, because I enjoy a good sing, and that's where we met.
Good stuff. Fall in love straight away and all that malarkey?
It was pretty quick from first meeting, and we got principal parts opposite each other, so it's sort of, these things happen. From first meeting to getting married it certainly wasn't much more than a year, if it was
a bit like Strictly Come Dancing, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the trouble is we both said, by the time you get to 30, you've sort of been around the relationship block 2 or 3 times, and sort of and you sort of you know what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. So we felt fairly comfortable, and 20 odd years later we're still together. So it can't have been that bad.
Can't have been that bad at all. But just as you were about to be married, or just afterwards, you actually came a cropper with some illness, didn't you?
Yeah. We were on our honeymoon, and actually we were on a cruise going up the west coast of Canada, and I had this basically diarrhea, to be blunt. No pain of any kind. And then it went to, I thought maybe it's something I've eaten on the cruise, or maybe dodgy water they give you or something. But when I got home, it continued, and 6 months later, there was a lot of pain as well. And they diagnosed Crohn's disease, which is a form of inflammatory bowel disease. Basically, they couldn't get it under control, and the only way to stop me basically dying was for them to remove my colon. So I have no colon now.
How close were you to dying?
The surgeon said 10 minutes. Told me 10 minutes after I woke up after the operation. He said, we got you just in time. Another 10 minutes, and you'd have probably been gone.
In hindsight, how did that make you and your wife feel?
Well, first of all, you're sort of angry that at a relatively young age this has happened to you at all. But then, of course, you realise that you're still here, and it's not the end of the world, and it makes you appreciate life an awful lot more.
Okay, and your wife?
Yeah, I mean, I always say it's the fact that we got married and I realised what a mistake I'd made, which is what made me so ill. So,
That goes down well.
No, she's lovely. I mean, it's difficult to know really, or difficult for me to explain, but basically, she stood by me right the way through, and it was a difficult time, and I couldn't do without her then, and I can't do without her now.
Did NatWest stand by you at this time?
Yes, fortunately, I had already been made a full grade manager by then. And in NatWest in those days, not only did you have a non-contributory pension scheme, so when my pension comes out, I haven't paid a penny, but the managers also got Bupa health insurance. So basically, it paid for the entirety of my treatment. The only thing it wouldn't pay for the meals I had in hospital. I had to pay for my own meals, but all the actual important stuff that was paid for.
Surely the NHS would have covered that, wouldn't they?
No. I had to pay for the meals because it was.
No, I'm talking about your operations or.
Yes, but if you've got private Bupa health insurance via the bank, you might as well use it, mightn't you?
Yes.
I was put on a private ward and stuff, which supposedly is nicer. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't in any fit condition to appreciate it one way or the other, frankly.
Okay, so you went back to work.
Yep.
You said in 1990.
Yeah, that happened.
2000.
Yeah.
You were made redundant.
Yeah.
You were 39, 40 years old.
Yeah. In 2000, Royal Bank of Scotland took over NatWest. People might remember that, and they offered middle management people so much money to go away that I very happily took it and went away, because it meant I wasn't having to do the travelling, which I didn't enjoy anymore.
You weren't. I mean, a lot of people when they're made redundant, it really screws their head up. What about you?
It didn't bother me. Well, it was so soon after I'd basically escaped death, and I wasn't really fit enough to have to do all the mileage that I was having to do my job, that it was a relief in many respects. Okay. And as I say, fortunately, they gave me almost 2 years' salary, so I didn't feel under any pressure.
Okay. So what did you do for a couple of years once you've been, got this payoff?
Yeah, I just got involved with some local charities and set up some local sort of theatre group and things. And basically, I didn't do a great deal, and certainly didn't do anything to earn money. And then the time came when obviously I thought, well, actually this money's starting to run out now, and I can't just live off my wife for the rest of my life. So, no. And she said that as well, funnily enough.
Yeah. What job was she doing at the
She's
time?
a teacher.
Teacher, yeah.
And so, fortunately, a friend of mine ran his own independent estate agency, and he said to me,
"This is in Saffron.
This is in Cirencester, still over in Gloucestershire. This is in Cirencester." And he said to me, I need someone that is competent in an administrative capacity. I know you're not really doing much, and you might need to. Do you want to come and do it? So I did, and that was it.
Did you ever have any aspirations to become a letting and estate agent?
No, none whatsoever.
What were your perceptions?
Probably like everybody's, very similar to double glazing salesmen, which is that they talk a good game, but what they say isn't necessarily true.
So this was 2000 and
this was 2003. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long were you working for that independent agent in Cirencester?
5 years.
Okay, so 2003 to 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah, fairly decent years.
Yes.
Okay, just before the crash.
Absolutely, and it was all sales. And being a single office independent agent, over those 5 years, I essentially did the whole lot from the front end process, the back end process, all of it. So I wasn't just doing one thing.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did actually. I did enjoy getting to learn about a new industry. Yeah, yeah.
And did you look at your friend stroke boss and think to yourself, I could do this better at this point? Or
No, I didn't. In fairness, not at that point. That came much later.
So what happened in 2008 meant you had to leave there?
My wife's parents, quite elderly, weren't too well, and we wanted to go over there and sort of be closer to them to help them as they got even older and more infirm.
Okay.
And so we moved over to this, and this was Saffron Walden's her hometown anyway.
Yes.
About 6 months, I just touted around for jobs, and I got a job in a single office independent agent.
So she moved. She became a primary school teacher, primary or secondary?
She's primary. Yeah.
Primary school in Saffron Walden. So she got a job there.
That's right.
And then it took a few months for you to get a job.
Yes.
In an agency.
That's right.
Lettings or sales this point?
Well, I was taken on to do sales, but this was think of the timing. This
08.
is when the market crash was. They suddenly thought, we do sales. Oh dear, business has gone down the tubes. Perhaps we need some cash flow. What's cash flow? Oh yes, we'll start up a lettings department. They knew nothing about lettings, so they said, Steve, don't do sales, do lettings. And I said, I know nothing about lettings. I said, neither do we, but I'm sure you'll learn, crack on. And I did.
And that was 08, 09?
Yeah.
Good stuff. So how did it go? How did you learn how to be a letting agent?
Two things. One is they got themselves going by buying out a very small independent agency in the locality, and that the lady who owned that came to be the manager of it. And so I learned a lot from her. But the other thing I did was I immediately started doing my exams. So my NFOP, as it was then, Property Mark they call themselves now,
Yes.
don't they? My technical exams. So I basically learned very quickly through doing my exams as well as through learning from her.
Did you enjoy doing the exams?
Yeah, and I think that's important actually. I think if you're going to set up on your own, you have to actually enjoy learning about processes, the law, all the regulations. You actually have to get a kick out, a bit nerdy, frankly, and I'm a bit sort of attention to detail nerdy on all of the legal stuff. If I didn't think I really understood the legal stuff, I couldn't have started up on my own because it's just too dangerous.
Why do you think letting agents get really turned on by the systems of the law, almost to the detriment of growing their own business?
Well, more and more, and it just gets worse every year, the law changes and it changes to put more and more onus on the letting agent to make sure that everything is as it should be. If you go back, 15, 20 years and you look at the regulation then to regulations now, it's a real minefield, the regulation in lettings, especially if you do HMOs and block management. I mean, I keep away from those, and even just doing residential, it's tricky because the regulations and the law changes all the time.
Do you get more turned on by lettings or sales?
The truth is, I do lettings because I know lettings much better, and cash flow for a small business is absolutely vital, and that's what lettings is. Sales, and I'm sorry to say this, sales guys, sales is a piece of cake compared to lettings. It's an absolute piece of cake compared to lettings. I mean, it just is. I do both.
Which one do you enjoy then?
Well, you enjoy the thing that's easiest. I enjoy the thing that's easiest, but I do the thing that's harder because it's cash flow, and actually it's easier to get lettings business because landlords, I seem to be a little bit fussier in some respects than people wanting to sell. People wanting to sell just want it done, whereas landlords, because it's going to be a long-term thing, they want it to be good value for money. Good value for money, by the way, not being just price, it's the combination of service and price put together.
So you were 2008, 2009, the old boss had come over to the agency. Was that old boss stayed there forever, or did they go?
No, she was still there when I left, but has left since gone.
Okay, so why aren't you still there in 2019-20?
Two reasons. One is I was getting frustrated because if I tell you that I was the only person in the building, in the entire building, including the owners and all of the other about 10 staff on the sales and letting side who were qualified, I was the one that was writing the terms of business and changing them as the law required. I was the one making sure the assured short-hold tenancy agreements were correct legally, etc., etc. And I was doing all the accounts for the lettings department as well. And
Even with this lady.
yeah. She was and I don't mean this disrespect at all. She was a lovely lady and great. She was a touchy-feely customer service person.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't really understand about the legal side of things and the law and the back office stuff. So I was doing it, and I wasn't being paid for what I knew was the value I was clearly adding, because they would have been in the soup without me on more than one occasion. And the other thing was, as often happens, they were growing very quickly, and someone put it in their head. They got these consultants in who put it into their head that they were overstaffed. So someone was going to have, 2 or 3 people were going to have to go. And I thought, well, if I'm not happy and 2 or 3 people are going to have to go, it might as well be me.
Did you put your hand up to be made redundant?
I did.
That took some balls.
It did. We'd known this was coming for 3 or 4 months, so that meant I'd had the time to plan and work out whether or not I could set up on my own. And having decided that yes, I could set up on my own, and I did know what I was doing enough, and it wouldn't cost too much money, etc., then I was happy to put my hand up, and I did so.
What did your wife feel about that?
She was very supportive. I'd say, fortunately, she's got a very good teaching job. So as such, we were never going to be destitute. And as I've said to her, if it doesn't work after 6 or 12 months, if this doesn't work, if I have to go and stack shelves at Tesco, I will go and stack shelves at Tesco. So don't think I'm just going to lounge around doing nothing or feeling sorry for myself. I'll do this, but if it doesn't work within 12 months, I will find a job of whatever type is necessary.
What fears did you have about starting your own agency?
There is always going to be a fear of failure. I'd been fortunate in my previous careers that I'd never really failed at anything. Not saying I've been a world beater, but I'd never actually failed. And when you start up on your own, there is every chance that you might have your tail between your legs a year later. Going back, for example, to your wife and your friends saying, well, that's been a complete failure. I am now going to be stacking shelves at Tesco.
Do you think a lot of people are fearful of other people's judgment and looking silly?
Oh, yes.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's human nature to a large extent. I think we all have hierarchies in our heads of
pecking orders.
Yeah, pecking orders, hierarchies. This job is better than this job. You've been more successful if you attain this than if you attain this. So yeah, if you're on a checkout at Tesco all of a sudden, seeing people come in and that know you and know what you used to do, yeah, there is a fear of failure and a fear of other people's judgment, and I think that's human nature. Actually, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think if you don't care what other people think, it can bring on some, should we say, interesting behaviours.
Yeah. Do you think we allow too much reference on what people care?
There's a balance. Of course, there's a balance. You should neither not care what other people think, nor should you only care what other people think. You've got to get a sensible balance. Of
There's
course.
a paradox there, isn't there? So you decided to set your own agency up. Your wife had your support. You've got some kids by this point, haven't you?
Yes, twin boys. When I set the agency up, they were just coming up to 10. They were 9.5.
Okay, so you have, I know you had your wife's there, but you had an expectation to bring your own money into the game.
Yeah, very much so.
What was it like when you started your own agency? So you started off without an office.
Yes. Yeah, I work out of my office at home. It's set up like an office, so all the rules about you've got to have your fees displayed in the office and all that kind of, it's all there on my wall. The fees are there, and my client money protection insurance certificates on the wall. All the stuff you have to do to set up an office is all there, but nobody ever comes to it. They can do, but one of my selling points is I never say to you, can you just pop into the office? No, I will come to you wherever and it's convenient and whenever
That's
it's convenient
landlords and
to you.
tenants, buyers and sellers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that makes a difference?
It seems to, yeah, yeah. It seems to make a difference. Let's put it this way: no one's ever said to me, "Oh, can I come to your office?" or "Why don't you have an office?" or whatever. It's never been an issue for me.
So you started in 2013.
Yeah.
What's your journey been? Let's go 2013, 2014, your first year. How
Yeah.
did you get on there?
I did do some early print advertising just to get myself in the local paper and known a bit more, but I haven't done that for many, many years. The first year was tough. I think I was probably going for. I didn't want to borrow money. I didn't think that was fair on my wife and the kids to get myself into debt if it might then go wrong. So basically, this was all just funded out of partly the redundancy money from the previous place I'd gone, but also from my savings. I think I was going for something like 12 or 13 months before I got a month where I actually made more money than it cost to run the business.
And how did that feel?
Um, it wasn't ideal, but I wasn't making no money, and I could see that things were gently moving in the right direction. And as I hadn't run out of savings yet, it was fine. I wasn't that bothered because it wasn't a disaster. It was just taking time to build up.
Did it take as long as you thought it would?
I think in hindsight, and that's the trouble, you're always looking with hindsight, aren't you? I thought it would take 12 to 18 months before I was making money every month without fail. And actually, that's exactly what happened. It was about 18 months. And after 18 months, I've made more money every month since then than it costs.
In the first 12 to 18 months, is there anything that you would have done differently to help the guys out there in the estate agency land? And letting side. We're just looking at the first 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. You see, when it's just you, and when you're trying to make sure that you don't basically kibosh the family finances, and you're not wanting to borrow money, you have to be a lot more savvy about, and perhaps a little bit more parsimonious about what you spend money on and what you don't. I think in hindsight, if I'd spent noticeably more money on advertising up front, I would have probably got more business faster. But the money would have run out faster. So I'm actually very content with what I did. In hindsight, it's worked out well.
Do you think your lack of money, and it wasn't a lack of money, but the fact that you weren't giving it out like fund vouchers?
It was a lack of money. No one would try and set up an agency on my amount of money because you'd think, oh, crikey, that's a bit tight. If it doesn't quite go to plan, you're going to be in trouble. So I had money, but I certainly didn't have as much as I would have liked to have had.
If you don't mind me asking, what sort of money had you allowed for before you broke even?
I'd allowed for 40k.
Yeah, because a lot of people do it on a lot more and still fail.
Yeah, I'd allowed for 40k. But see, this is the thing. People have a high street office, and it's great because it's this permanent advertising hoarding. So people drive past it, they walk past it. So
people ignore that.
Well, maybe, but the point is, it's there. The name of the agency is always there in the town because people see it all the time. But think of the cost involved. And as soon as you've got an office, whether you've got any business or not, what have you got to have? Right. Somebody sat in it. You've got to have somebody sat in it. And then you've got all the equipment, you've got the electricity, the heating, the lighting, the water, the window displays, the business rates, as well as however much it costs you to rent on your local high street, which is probably quite a lot. Even in 2013, it wasn't necessary. Even then, 90% of people of buyers or tenants were coming from Rightmove. Even then, and I think it's even more now.
So, what did the other estate agents think of you when you started, especially your old?
Well, in fairness, my old boss, because basically I'd made life easy for him because he didn't have to make a decision about who to make redundant, sort of thing. I'd sort of put my hand up, said, well, if someone's got to go from the lettings department, it'll be me. I said, I'll probably be setting up on my own. And he wasn't fazed by it at all. Now, whether that's just because he's a nice guy, which he is, or whether that was because he thought, well, he will be a complete fizz, that's not going to work. He's no threat to me. I don't know, but I mean, he wasn't bothered about it at all. And the other agents aren't bothered about it, and they shouldn't be, because it's quite a big market in the Saffron Walden area. And my share, I've no idea what my share is, but it's going to be tiny. But then again, when it only costs you, when your total running costs for the entire year are 20k,
That includes the portals.
that includes the portal. Total running cost is 20k, and I'm bringing in 50k a year income, working for between 1 and 2 hours a day. Why do I need to worry about it?
Are you happy?
Yeah. I mean, I never intended it to be a lifestyle business. I always assumed that I'd be having to work the full length of hours to make it work. But as it has turned out, I've got so much business from personal word of mouth from existing clients. And that's an important thing I need to say, actually, Chris. If you're going to set up like I have, and you're not going to spend a lot of money on advertising, and you're not going to have an office on the high street that everybody sees, you have to get involved with your local community. You have to, I mean, I do a lot of singing. So, I mean, the Choral Society, that's over 100 people. I go down the pub with them after, and you tell them what you do, and you talk to people, and people get to know you. So they give you business, and they refer you to other people. I'm in the church choir, loads, big church, big choir. You talk to people, people get to know you, they recommend you business. Word of mouth, as we all know, word of mouth is the best type of business you can possibly get.
People by people.
And that's where I get all my business now. I did get business, from a bit of advertising at the start, but in recent years, I've got all of my business from word of mouth, all of it.
Would you do anything differently?
The downsides to setting up as I've done on my own are that I've set up on my own. So every decision has to be made by me, with my input, with no one to talk it through with, sort of thing. Everything is on me, and I have to do everything. So I do everything, and I have to make every decision.
Is it lonely?
It can be. I've got used to it, is the truth of the matter. To start with, it's lonely, yeah. And I guess if it was lonely and you weren't very successful, then yes, I mean, you would stop. You would have to stop. You'd get depressed otherwise.
So you're turning over 50 grand a year in mostly lettings fees and a bit of sales fees.
Yeah.
Most people would actually say that's a failure, but you don't. But your perception, your attitude is that you're as happy as a pig in poo.
I turn it around and I say I look at the profit, and the profit's 30k. Now, 30k is not a huge amount of money, but it's still above the average income and it is, remember, based on 1 to 2 hours work a day. If I wanted to, I could get more business and I could earn a lot more. But why?
How old are you now?
I'm 54. I'll be 55 in December.
Okay, so how long do you want to carry on doing this?
Another 4 or 5 years, at most. And if I can get away with 2 or 3 years, I'll do 2 or 3.
And what advice would you give to someone, a branch manager or a neg, thinking to themselves, in their 40s, that they've got probably a wife or a partner that can. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend this lifestyle style of agency?
Yeah, because it does put you in charge of your own life in a meaningful way. It is important that you genuinely understand your business. So you have to understand the end-to-end process, valuation, right through to the end, and you really do have to understand all the legalities, because you can get into so much trouble if you get the legalities wrong. But if you genuinely have so much experience and knowledge of the industry that you know all of that, then setting up on your own I would recommend it, because if I can do it, so can anybody else. And you do feel in control of your own life.
And is there any other advice you want to give to the guys and girls out there in estate agency land?
If you're not happy, or you think you can do more than you're doing now, go for it, because otherwise you'll always think, I wonder what I could have done if I just had the courage to do it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Chris.